Have you ever heard of a construction project with a really good problem? So good, in fact, that the donations just wouldn't stop coming in. Today we're digging into a story from the book of Exodus about building a sacred space. But it's also about incredible craftsmanship and what happens when a community's generosity gets kind of overwhelming. Let's get into it.
I mean, can you imagine being the project manager and having to tell people to please stop giving money? That is the wild situation we find ourselves in here. This quote right here, it sets the stage for everything. We're talking about a community whose generosity literally overflowed. It's the kind of problem most people would dream of having.
So here is our blueprint for today. First, we'll meet the people who are called to do this amazing work. Then we'll dive into that incredible surplus of giving. After that, we get into the real nuts and bolts, or, fabrics and frames, of the construction, from the huge woven walls all the way to the final golden veil.
Okay, first things first. Who do you actually get to build something this important? This wasn't a job you could just post on a bulletin board. It required a very specific kind of person, with a very specific kind of skill set.
I just love the term they use here, a wise-hearted person. This wasn't just about being a skilled carpenter or weaver. The way the text puts it, their talent was seen as a divine gift, a special kind of wisdom literally placed in their hearts for this one sacred purpose. Their craft wasn't just a job, it was their calling.
So you had two main guys leading the charge, the master craftsmen Bezalel and Aholiab. But they weren't working alone. The team also included every single wise-hearted person they could find. And get this, anyone whose heart stirred him up to come and do the work. It points to this powerful internal drive, a volunteer workforce running on pure passion.
Okay, so you've got the dream team, right? Motivated, skilled, but what about the materials? Well, this is where the story takes a turn you just don't see coming.
You have to understand, this wasn't like a one-time offering plate being passed around. The text says people showed up with contributions every single morning. Just picture it, a constant, daily stream of people, excited to bring what they had. That enthusiasm was contagious, and it turns out it became a little too successful.
And this leads to an absolutely unbelievable moment. The actual artisans, the people on the ground doing the work, had to stop what they were doing, go find their leader, Moses, and tell him they had a problem. And the problem wasn't a shortage, it was a surplus. They literally had too much stuff to work with.
So what does Moses do? He doesn't just let the pile get bigger, he takes action. A proclamation goes out to the entire camp telling everyone, okay, that's enough, stop bringing offerings. And the people actually listened. The flood of donations stopped because they already had more than they could ever need.
With a mountain of materials now at the ready, the real construction begins. And the very first step was creating the walls. But these weren't walls of stone or wood. They were made of enormous, beautifully woven curtains.
Let's break this down. You basically had two main layers. The inner layer, the tabernacle proper, was made of 10 gorgeous linen curtains in these vibrant colors, all held together with gold clasps. Then, draped over that for protection, was an outer tent made of 11 curtains of tough goat's hair, fastened with brass. See, every single detail mattered, right down to the metal.
So how do you turn a bunch of huge, separate curtains into one single building? The engineering was actually pretty brilliant. The artisans would make 50 perfectly spaced loops on the edge of one curtain and 50 on the edge of the one next to it. Then they just link them together with 50 golden clasps, or taches, and boom, two pieces become one unified whole. And to top it all off, literally, and make the whole thing weatherproof, they added two more layers. First, a covering of ram skins that were dyed red, and over that, a final super tough outer layer made of badger skins. This thing was built to last.
Now those amazing fabric walls couldn't just float in midair. They needed a skeleton to give them shape and strength. So now we move from the soft textiles to the incredibly strong and incredibly valuable frame of the tabernacle. Just to give you an idea of the scale we're talking about, for the main walls, the artisans built 20 massive boards of shittim wood for the south side and another 20 for the north side. These formed the long, primary walls of the entire structure.
And what did these giant boards stand on? Not just on the dirt, this is wild. For the 20 boards on one side, they had to cast 40 heavy sockets of solid silver. That means 80 solid silver foundations just for the main walls. The whole sanctuary was literally built on a foundation of precious metal.
So let's put all the pieces together. You have these super strong wooden boards, completely covered in gold. Each one has two little pegs at the bottom that slot perfectly into those heavy silver sockets. And then, to hold them all together, long bars, also covered in gold, slide through golden rings on the boards, locking it all into one solid, gleaming structure.
All right, the main structure is up. It's solid, it's gleaming with gold. The final step was to create the divisions inside, these beautiful and deeply symbolic curtains that would separate the different sacred spaces from each other. Now, there were two main hangings, and the differences, while subtle, are super important. The inner veil separated the absolute most holy place. It was made of cunning work with figures of cherubim woven in, and it hung on 4 pillars sitting in silver sockets. The outer hanging, which was the door to the tent, was made of needlework hung on 5 pillars and sat in sockets of brass. The changing materials, from brass to silver, were a clear signal that you were moving into a more and more holy space.
And so the tabernacle was built. It was a masterpiece of craft, and it was funded by an outpouring of community spirit that was almost unheard of. This whole story leaves us with a really powerful question. This was a project defined not by what it lacked, but by its incredible surplus. So it makes you wonder, what is really possible when a community's heart is so stirred up that their generosity becomes truly more than enough?